Namaskar and good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all our viewers who have joined us today for this special webinar series under the aegis of India Exports Initiative. My name is Naya Palokar and I am your host today. The India Exports Initiative aims to orient over 1 lakh potential MSMEs to become first-time exporters. In order to double the number of current active exporters, which includes around 5,000 women entrepreneurs. The initiative and the India Exports Portal was launched on 29 September 2021 by the Union Minister of MSME, Sri Narayan Rane. I take this opportunity to invite all of you to visit the portal on www.indiaexports.com. Exports without an E. Registration on the portal is free and the information required to become an exporter is available in 9 languages. The initiative organizes sectoral webinars where we discuss specific sectoral exports potential with different countries and sectoral opportunities with successful exporters, facilitators, and experts in policy makers. The webinar today is focused on leather and leather products, which have immense export potential and is one of the leading export items from India. Now, without taking more time, I would like to introduce to you today's esteemed panel, Sri Sanjay Lekha, Chairman, Council for Leather Exports and the founder, Chairman of the Alpine Crew. Welcome to you, sir. Then we have Sri Naresh Bhasin, Regional Chairman, West, Council for Leather Exports and Managing Director of Ram Fashion Exports Private Limited. Welcome to you, sir. Then Sri S.K. Verma, Executive Director, Indian Footwear Components Manufacturers Association. Welcome to you, sir. Then we have Dr. K.J. Sriram, Director, Central Leather Research Institute. Welcome. Then we have Dr. B. Chandra Sikharam, Distinguished Scientist and former Director, CSIR, Central Leather Research Institute. Welcome to you, sir. We have Mr. J. Srinath, Area Sales Manager, UPS. Ms. Bhavna Blani, Founder, Govt, Leather White. Welcome to you, ma'am. Now, the panel is moderated by Sri Vinod Kumar, President of India SME Forum. With this, I take pleasure in inviting the convener of this initiative, Mr. Pranav Zunjarao, to share a brief on the sector potential and opportunities for MSMEs.
सपनों की कोई एक्सपायरी डेट नहीं सपनों की कोई एक्सपायरी डेट नहीं होती। एक छोटा सा सपना, उसी को साकार करने के लिए आप करते हैं मेहनत, आप जोड़ते हैं रिश्ते, उसी को मुमकिन बनाने के लिए आप रखते हैं हौसला। कदम छोटे हों या हों बड़े, कामयाबी की बुलंदी जब आप छूते हैं तो खुशी के आंसू तो हमें भी आते हैं। सफर में धूप और छांव दोनों आते हैं, पर सही वक्त में अपने ही तो साथ निभाते हैं। Here's presenting our range of business banking solutions. इतना कुछ ताकि आपका बिजनेस बढ़े और तभी साथ में सच हो हमारा सपना। As we believe in empowering businesses with solutions under a single roof. Kotak Business Banking Solutions.
Namaskar everybody. To begin with the presentation today, I just want to start with the opening remarks. For the leather sector in India, as we saw in the upcoming Union Budget 2022 and 23, which was announced by the government, which planned to increase the overall capital expenditure by 35% and fuel growth of an economy recovering from the third wave of COVID-19 pandemic. An array of exemptions were announced in this budget, which will be given on items such as embellishments, trimmings, fasteners, buttons, zippers, lining materials, and specified leather that may indeed by exporter of leather garments and leather footwear, thus overall incentivizing Indian exports. In the leather and footwear industry, there is a lack of availability of good quality components, which makes India a highly dependent on other countries such as China for importing inputs. And currently, almost all the raw materials and footwear components are imported in India, owing to little or no domestic manufacturing of such inputs. High duties on footwear components had also resulted in high cost of manufacturing for the producer, which inhibited not just profit generation but also design innovation of the products. With this, let us start with today's presentation, where I will make you go through export potential of leather and leather products in different countries. So, moving on with the presentation. As we all know, next slide. As we all know, leather is one of most widely traded commodities globally. The Indian leather products and footwear industry hold a prominent place in Indian economy. This sector is known for its consistency in high export earnings, and it is among the top 10 foreign exchange earners for the country. With the growing e-commerce exports, Indian sellers can now take their leather export products to international markets with ease. The industry is bestowed with an affluence of raw materials, as India is endowed with 20% of world cattle and buffalo and 11% of world goat and sheep population. Indian leather accounts of 13% world leather production. It has become the strength of Indian leather industry, as India has annual availability of about 2.5 billion square feet. The leather industry is an employment intensive sector providing jobs to about 4.42 million people. Women employment is predominant in leather products sector with about 30% share. Now let me give you an overview of various leather and leather products and their share in leather exports from India. Leather footwear contributes about 40.35% of total leather exports from India, and India is the second largest producer of footwear in the world. Leather good contributes around 25.35% of total leather exports from India, and India is the fourth largest exporter of leather goods and accessories in the world. Finished leather contributes around 10.27% of total leather exports from India, and leather garments contributes around 8.03% of total leather exports from India, and it is the second largest producer and exporter in the world. Leather footwear components, which includes leather upper, leather liner, leather insole and outsole, leather welt and heel. These are leather footwear components which contributes around 5.37% of total leather exports from India. Not only this, but saddlery and harness sector in leather itself contributes around 8.03% of total leather exports from India. And India is the third largest exporter of saddlery and harnesses in the world. India's major exports to countries like the USA, Germany, United Kingdom, next, Italy, France, Spain, UAE, and the Netherlands. If we talk about the percentage share of total leather exports from India, USA contributes around 17%, Germany is around 13%, UK is 9%, Italy is 7%, France is 7%, Spain is 4%, and the Netherlands and UAE contributes around 2%, where India exports leather products to more than 50 countries and top 12 countries together, which accounts for 72.15% of total exports. With this, my closing slide talks about the top 5 countries with huge export potential from India, where USA tops the list with a huge export potential of $2 billion. Germany ranks second with export potential of $596 million. China ranks third with export potential of $592 million. Hong Kong ranks fourth with export potential of $552 million, and UK ranks fifth with export potential of $393 million. With this, may I now welcome Shri Vinod Kumar, who is the President of India SME Forum, to conduct the panel discussion on export potential and building ecosystem for MSME exports with our esteemed panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pranav. It's a pleasure to have you, and it's a pleasure to have all our guests here today. You did talk about the budget and what the budget brought to all of us. So I'm going to request all my co-panelists to please start talking. Let's first look at what is it that we'd have to talk about the budget, which has been introduced in the Parliament on the 1st. And let us first, I'd like to go to Sanjay ji. Sanjay ji, what do you feel the budget announcements have done for the sector? Looking at the finance minister announced a slew of focuses on various industries. What is your perspective about it?
Thank you, Vinodji, for first of all for having us here today and for your question. See, the budget this time has been, I think for one, it has talked about exports, it has talked about leather industry, and we are extremely happy that, because of the attention that we have got there. Some specific things that the budget has brought for us is permitting the import of various embellishments and components duty-free for re-export, of course. But this is something that will make our productions easier. This was actually, there was a similar scheme until a year back, which was discontinued in the budget of 2021. But what has been introduced in this scheme, in this budget, does take care of quite a large number of concerns that the industry had. Of course, there are still concerns, and that's something that we as industry will always have. But I think I do want to appreciate the budget that was announced, and I think this is going to go a long way in making us move forward.
I'd also like to have feedback from Mr. Verma, Mr. S.K. Verma, so he can also tell us from the point of view of the Indian Footwear Component Manufacturer Association. What do you feel about the budget? What are your perspectives?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting IFCOMA. Basically, I will say that the Prime Minister has called, given a thrust to the leather sector, calling it as a champion sector. So we are very hopeful that, and in the budget also, there is a great emphasis on the MSME sector. So there is a good allocation of funds for the development of the infrastructure as well as the MSME sector. So I feel it's a very balanced and uprising budget actually.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move forward here. We've got some perspectives on the budget from leading organizations. We're talking about the leather sector, which is now experiencing a turnaround. The government is planning to boost export of leather items by setting a target of around $12 billion between per year between 2021 and 2030. And we all know that to achieve this, the leather and the leather goods industry would be required to improve the quality of our products so that we are able to compete in the international market. So, I mean, I first go to, the Central Leather Research Institute. We have the honor of Mr. KJ Sriram, who's here. So, I'd like to ask him, what are we doing to improve the quality, and what are sort of initiatives that we as a country are looking at in terms of leather and leather products?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here. In the first place, let us first understand that the Indian leather and leather products is one of the most sought after commodity, at least by a certain segment of the procurement countries. We need to up on our quality control measures. We need to increase our sustainability quotient. Today, the entire world is looking in terms of the carbon footprint and such things. And this, to me, would be what the industry would have to project itself. We are starting with the byproduct of the meat industry, and we are actually converting a waste of the meat industry into a value-added product. And this niche thing should be taken forward, and we have to project ourselves as an industry which ensures environmental, economic, and social sustainability. I think that would be my first words. Thank you.
Excellent. Sanjay ji, would you like to add to that? What is, we on one hand feel that the leather industry is still reeling because of the pandemic, and possibly, we've not been able to get around to the, to actually turning around and getting everybody on board, and then increasing the export or the numbers. What is your feeling about this?
Yeah. So, Vinod, you see the current year. I'll go back a couple of years. During the pandemic year, of course, we lost numbers. Our turnover, our exports did go down. But in the current financial year, we are going to be closing this year at about the same number as the pre-COVID year, which means that what we lost in the COVID year, we are recovering that back. And, and then there's a certain number of interesting elements that are happening during this recovery. One of the major issues that one of the major trends I'd like to highlight here is that, you see, traditionally our conventional market has been Europe. And this has accounted for almost 60% of the country's exports. However, Europe even now is still reeling and has been going in and out of lockdowns and all kinds of pandemic-related situations. But what we see is a very, very positive trend in the United States. Our exports to the USA in the current year have grown almost 90%, and US has become our largest destination in terms of leather and leather product and footwear exports. And this is a trend that I see going forward is only going to get bigger and bigger. The American brands, the American stores are looking at India in a very, very serious way. I mean, they've been twice bitten by the situation in China. First, they got bitten when President Trump brought in the tariff, the 25% tariff on Chinese goods, and they started looking around for alternatives at that time. But then I think the status quo and a certain amount of lethargy on doing something new, that sort of slowed it down. But then the pandemic. You see, the moment we got caught in the pandemic, I mean, that is where I think all the large consumers, all the large buying agents, companies in the United States decided that they had to have an alternate. And then the anti-China wave and all that. And India today has we have the big advantage of being able to showcase ourselves as a very reliable and socially compliant, the country that looks at abiding by the law, looking at compliances, looking at sustainability, all of that. So all the large American customers are today looking at India. I know for a fact that many of them have already started new operations in India. Many of them are in various stages of having capacities built for them. So I see that the potential for India to grow is huge in this sector. Our targets, of course, as did get mentioned, from the current 5 billion, our target is to reach 10 billion of exports by 2025 and to reach 28 billion of exports by 2047 under the Prime Minister's vision of 2047. And you see, and another point I would want to mention here is that there is also, with an increasing disposable income even within the country, the potential for the domestic market to grow is very large. In the case of footwear, from our per capita consumption of 2 pairs right now, we expect that over the next 4 to 5 years, this should go to about 4 pairs, which means that there will be a sudden huge demand of another 3 billion pairs if we do reach the per capita consumption of, even if we reach 3 pairs per capita, it still is an additional demand of 1.35 billion pairs, which is really huge. So I am extremely optimistic. I feel that the industry has a long way to go, and we are only going upwards from here.
You're
I'm
muted.
sorry, Vinod. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, I'd like to take the same question to Dr. Chandrasekharan. And, what is it that we are missing out? What is it that we need to do? And whether we are going in the right direction? And if not, what else is required to be done?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Vinod.
Pleasure, sir.
Good evening, panelists. So it's always a pleasure to interact. Yes, as you were mentioning, and as our fellow panelists talking about, it's definitely a welcome trend, and it's a continuing effort. I must say, since the last 4 or 5 years, the government has definitely looked to invest in terms of improving the infrastructure for the leather sector. This on one side, and especially as my colleagues, Mr. Sanjay Lekha and Dr. Sriram said, we are turning towards leather and leather products predominantly from leather. So the moment we are going into, as we say, a value addition from a byproduct of an animal industry into leather. But then we didn't stop with that, and of course we have still gone ahead with value addition into making products. As it was mentioned, nearly 60% is getting into Europe, and it's a welcome sign that we are getting into US. But one has to really look at Europe versus US, because the consumers are totally different, and the kind of products and the design and the whole aspect of the requirement. On one side, the US, some of the brands look for volumes, and especially in Europe, we are still looking at not very big volumes as it happens in US, but the value per piece or what we call it, the niche products. The opportunities are plenty, and this is actually a right moment for these SMEs at least to look at it. And what you say that what we need to concentrate, we need innovation that has to come, because of this pandemic has really pushed everyone to their limits of surviving or sustaining, whatever you call it. And in fact, this sector, in my opinion, even during the worst global recessions, I think the leather sector stood up, and we performed better. And the same thing might prevail, over the coming years as well. In my opinion, the innovation, whether it is the research and development, which gets into, as my colleague said, getting into making products towards with a carbon neutrality or something of that kind coming into it, introducing something like a circular economy where the waste also could be converted into a useful product. In fact, most of the brands are now looking at what kind of a circular, this you will have, so that some of your components in a product will have a recycle. You know pretty well, the leading brand like Apple boldly saying that all their metal cases, say especially the aluminum cases of all their products, are from a recycled material. And the same thing holds true for many of the brands who are looking towards in their product a certain components which will have some of these things would come into it. I think this sector already paving way for making a huge environmental disaster that would have happened if we have not converted the animal hides and skins into a leather product. Even that would have created a huge environmental impact. From there, now we are getting into niche products, and we are now looking towards making some of the sustainable products using some circular economy and carbon neutrality. And these are the lessons we have learned. As Mr. Sanjay Lika said, our domestic market is growing at a much faster rate as well. And in the past, there's been a divide between the manufacturers of the domestic goods and the export goods. But that, in my opinion, has to come. Now it has to be a seamless integration of the exporters also making domestic products vis-a-vis some of the domestic manufacturers getting into the niche area of export. And if we get into this kind of a seamless integration of both domestic and export manufacturers, I think that's the solution, and we could reach out to the targets whatever we are mentioning. And in this, the role of our institutionals, whether it is the Leather Research Institute or the FDDI or NID, and in fact I must say that my colleague Mr. Naresh Basan is also around. And in the past 3 or 4 years, where we have made several efforts to bring in the designers into our race, which is an annual feature. And if this continues, I think we can get into the design developmental component, which will add further value to our products in terms of design, quality, and the whole host of this. With the large IT sector backing up, the intelligent manufacturing, IoT things, and these are, will surely add more value to our SME manufacturing side. Thank you.
Excellent. In fact, I'd like to go to Mr. Basin. Mr. Basin, we were earlier talking about the possibility of the potential of exports, both for products as well as raw leather and all that. So would you be kind enough to share with us your insight?
Yeah, thank you, Vinodji, and a very good afternoon to all my fellow panelists. The global landscape is worrying, but I think that is the past, and we as a country are bouncing back very efficiently. Like Sanjayji said, our democratic values, our entrepreneurship, compatibility, compliance, and the platform created by the government, like Make in India, I think has given a huge visibility, not only to leather sector, across all platforms. And the responsibility lies on entrepreneurs like us to really encash this opportunity. I've headed the design task force for 5 years, where we got in the foreign designers, and believe me, the image of India as perceived by designers or the inputs that they contributed to has immensely helped the export fraternity. So I think this Make in India along with Innovate in India. So I had the opportunity to talk to Commerce Ministry also, and we said Make in India followed by Innovate in India is a huge success. And I'm glad to share with you that the top foreign brands in the country, and we are catering to some of them, are now coined a word saying India for India and India for Globe. I mean, the stores they have in India, they want us to supply there, which is India for India, and India for Globe is that when we start supplying to the world. So it's a huge, it's all adjacency around Make in India. Make in India, Innovate in India, India for India, India for Globe. So the whole package is But there is from ideation to execution. Our past couple of years have been slow, but I think right now the stage is set for us. The runway is over. We can only take off. And if we sincerely look into that to-do list and regularly review it and follow it and push it, the targets set are not difficult to achieve. So here are 3-4 slides which give you an idea. The next slide, please. Yeah, we go to the next slide. Yeah. So this slide shows you that we have not done well in the last couple of years, but when you don't do well, when you're on the lower end of the ladder, you can only climb up. You cannot go back further down. So the opportunities for us in all these segments, leather footwear, finished leather, leather garments, leather goods, footwear components, non-leather footwear, I mean huge, but there is an opportunity and there's a to-do list. Like in the last couple of weeks we got FTA with UK almost done. We got FTA with UAE done. So the platform created by the government and the platform of doing ease of business is already there. It's for us to really be active. Next slide, please. So these are the things to do which I just came up. You need to scale up. Huge volume markets like USA, product diversification into children and ladies. Again, branding, and government is really giving a good hand-holding on create Indian brands. They're willing to create 10 Indian brands and support them. Mega and micro clusters, every state is going after that. Productivity is within the four walls of your organization. Industrial engineers, productivity, output, speed to market, these are the things we need to work, and the logistics. And I may also add here what Sanjay ji was saying, that it is the export fraternity today which is catering hugely to the domestic brands. See, domestic brands have realized that they need to go to an organized sector. They are not getting their quantities and quality from the so-called garage factories and unorganized sector. They are now depending, and I'm telling you, we are flooded with orders from domestic market, and we are quoting deliveries after 6 months. So I mean, there has never been a situation so good that you have orders on export front and you have orders on the domestic front. And it is the export fraternity, those who have set up their systems, those who have got their infrastructure in place. Believe me, if you are willing to bat, you can hit sixes. And the target of 20 billion for domestic and 10 billion for exports, I think Sanjay ji will be a very happy man if we all, and including the ministry, that if we all work together and achieve that. So this is the growth potential till 25-26. Workforce from 4.42 million, we are looking at 5.92 million. Exports, we are targeting 10 billion, and domestic, we are targeting 20 billion. I think if we stay at the current rate of what the factories are full of and the demand, believe me, we have the best of both the worlds. And I think we are ready to take on the challenges and grasp the opportunities. So I wish good luck to ourselves and to everybody in the country. Let's make our dreams come true. Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you very much, Basim Saab. I think that gave quite a good rosy picture. I think Sanjay ji wants to come in. Please feel free, sir.
I want to just come in. Yeah. I just wanted to respond to what Naresh Basim ji just said. I think it is the potential is good, is big, but what we are missing in this industry is that there is a lack of new entrepreneurs coming in. And I think the whole purpose of this webinar today is that new entrepreneurs should come and join the industry, should become, the potential is there for them. It is an industry which is, where there is, where I think we all agree on the potential for the business to be there. So I do call upon everybody who is listening in today that do look at this industry and come and join the leather fraternity. And if there's any support that is needed, We at the Council for Leather Exports are always there to support you, and I'm sure the Ministry of MSME is there. All the other, support measures are there. So
In fact,
let us
we do.
get more people.
In fact, we
Besides
do have
the
Sanjay ji. We do have an entrepreneur who is a micro, small, medium entrepreneur, Bhavna ji. She has been working in this field for quite some time. She's beset by a lot of troubles, including the fact that during the pandemic there were not many orders. Also, we have this threat of substitutes for leather rising with vegan leather and for leather, microfiber, synthetic leather, and so on and so forth. I'd rather let Bhavna ji talk about the challenges that she's facing and her perspective. Yes, Bhavna ji.
just one thing
Thank
that I
you.
want to. Sorry, yeah, no, I'll speak later on. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Vinod. Thank you for including me in this seminar. So there are certain points I want to point out as a small entrepreneur working in this industry for a long time. I think today the biggest problem is getting skilled labor. For me, it's difficult. I find it, especially in Kolkata, getting labor and then making them follow the industrial engineering norms. Hiring in good industrial engineers and increasing productivity because they are used to creating and manufacturing on a piece basis. So changing the mentality and bringing in the systems of industrial engineering, Kaizen, that is a tough job, but it's happening. And I'm glad that this change is coming in. Another problem I would like to point out is for women entrepreneurs getting capital. So the bank that I've been working with is not only taking collateral, but they insist on having my husband's signatures on forms, on papers, even though I am the one managing the business and he has no clue what is happening. So I find that a big irritant, and of course he has a share in the business. But then I hope some of the banks are listening and understanding that for entrepreneurs who are bringing in foreign exchange, you should not harass the entrepreneur with so much of documentation every year renewal, things like that. On the whole, I'm very happy with the CLE and the attempts they have made to market. They had virtual shows when the pandemic was on, and I got a few clients even from these online shows, which is surprising because sometimes you go to trade shows and don't get clients, but when you on online you are getting clients who don't insist on visiting your factories, and they are giving you orders, seeing your work, seeing your track record, which is a great thing. I'm a firm believer on the need to brand our products and to sell online. I'm a firm believer of having your own brands, especially for the Indian market as well as the international market. Designers who come and work with me are very happy with the skill and the quality of the products that our artisans are making. I am very grateful for the opportunity the industry has given me as a woman and the artisans who are women whom we want to support. There are few suggestions that the PLI scheme should be extended into this industry. I think we need to market more. We need to, have more foreign designers coming and working with us and, creating designs more for the Western market, which is already happening. These are certain points that I wanted to make, and maybe bring in artificial intelligence into our production. These are certain aspects that we need to modernize from what we used to.
Excellent, Bhavna ji. Thank you very much. I think Naresh ji wanted to respond. Yes,
Yeah,
Naresh ji.
I think this covers what Bhavna ji said and what Sanjay ji is working on. And I hope the ministry is also listening that we need consistency in policy. Suddenly you have the subvention gone, interest subvention, which was a great percentage of lending. We were at 9-10%, and then there was a subvention factor which has been removed from the table. So suddenly you feel that huge pressure of paying the entire interest component. and then suddenly there's an import duty on leather. So we need a consistent policy. Well, there is rosy picture, but it's also important to see what is happening around you in Bangladesh, in Vietnam, in China, even in Pakistan. So why, if you become expensive, then as an entrepreneur like Bhavnaji or like me, we are cash strapped and we are, we're trying to make things happen. But while government is hand holding, but these policies suddenly get stopped in between and there is no visibility or there is no horizon. Sanjay ji is working on it. He's promised the industry that government has promised him. I think these financial hand-holding and this tough time during COVID, credit or some, all these things need to be really, because that is the environment and that is the platform which will encourage that target. So I wanted to add that with my very optimism.
I agree, Nareshji. In fact, I'd like to go to Mr. Sriram or Dr. Sriram also, for this, and also Mr. Verma. We talking about on one hand, all the substitutes, vegan leather and everything else, and then on the other side, there's stiff competition from China, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and other countries, and they are very competitive compared to what we are trying to do. So, what does India need to do to actually be able to, face this stiff competition and grow? That seems to be a challenge.
First, a small correction, the terminology itself. The moment you start coupling several things under the banner called leather, then you are unnecessarily talking about a competition.
Sure.
First of all, the International Standards Organization has already said that anything which is animal fiber based is what is called as leather, and others are leather likes. We also should from what Mr. Sanjay Dika said about the domestic market and other things growing, especially the footwear numbers which he spoke about, leather alone being a byproduct of the animal meat industry, leather alone cannot meet all the requirements. Automatically, others are coming in as not as competitors to leather, as somebody who can bridge the gap between the available animal-based material and the product. They are just filling the gaps, whether you call it as filling the gaps in terms of cost or filling the gap in terms of availability of raw material. So I don't think we should look at it as a competition. It is just that there is a gap and that is being filled up. The competition per se, we are talking about when it comes to trying to sell an apple as an orange or an orange as an apple. Each leather is a natural material, and the cost of your leather is dependent on the quality and the consumer desire that you are fulfilling. So you cannot equate the quality parameters of one manufacturer with another manufacturer, leave alone one country with another country. So for the same thing, I don't think we should actually look at it as competition. You will have a buyer if your quality requirement, what you can offer in terms of quality is acceptable to the buyer. And I think that is what we need to maintain. So I don't think that the terminology of competition between countries or leather versus the other materials is actually there. I strongly believe that if you can up your quality quotient and reduce your cost per square feet, then you are there already. That's my take of it. Thank you.
Excellent. Verma sir?
Yeah.
You have anything?
Yeah, actually, I very much agree with Dr. Sriram. Actually, we have to work on our strengths basically. And I see there is a great potential for the non-leather sector as well, which is growing leaps and bounds, in fact. So that is where, and for the component sector is concerned, I feel that the sector needs some hand holding from the government, that because if it needs to rise, and we have been, writing to the ministry various number of times, asking for, this joint ventures with some of the major countries who are good on components. Actually, maybe this Spain is concerned, or Italy is there, or even Taiwan for that matter. So if that is the case, then we can also grow because we consider a component to be the backbone of the finished product, whether it is footwear or leather goods or leather garment. So how do we take the component sector ahead in this competitive market? That is also my take.
In fact, I'd
I
like to go to
just
Srinath. Srinath here, works with UPS, and they have had a quite a big exposure to leather exports. Also, the fact is that we are looking at a lot more people going into the D2C space when it's for in on international websites like Bhavna also mentioned. There's a lot of work that is happening in e-commerce, D2C sales, where you are able to take your own brand into various other countries, including the US. Uh, Srinath, what is the challenges that you feel most enterprises have who are in the leather segment, whether it's in the fashion industry or footwear or furniture or interior design or automotive? Oh, we lost him again. Yeah, we seem to have lost him. Yes, Sanjay ji, I'll go back to you. You know,
okay.
We talked about challenges. We talked about the fact that the government needs to push and do a lot more. One aspect of this is completely about the online exports. E-commerce exports. There's a lot of manufacturers that we know who are micro or small, and they have been working on various e-commerce websites in the D2C space across maybe 15, 20 international e-commerce websites in various markets and having certain amount of traction. But we are not growing it per se, or I don't know what is missing for us to do maybe a couple of $1 billion only online.
Yes, I understand what you're referring to. See, again, I would say the potential to take this forward is there. But then there are, within the existing regulations, the existing customs laws, there are difficulties in shipping by courier or directly to a customer right now. And then, of course, you see the whole problem of when there is a return, how do you tackle that? And so these are the kind of situations. So I think if our exporters who really want to do this, I think they have to use facilities from people like from Amazon or any of the other marketplaces, and I think that is how the business can be really made to grow. See, until you have availability of product overseas, in a warehouse overseas, sitting here and shipping out one wallet or one jacket is fine. I mean, it does show that there is a demand, but then the logistics of handling that are far too expensive, are far too difficult. And I think we have to mature ourselves. We have to learn how really to make this forward. So that is one. The other thing I'd also like to go back to is what Bhavaji mentioned in terms of the production and the way we produce our product. You see, when she referred to most of the labor wanting to do it on a piece rate and doing a whole product at a time and not really working on product engineering and and on modern methods of production, I think this is something that has held us back over the years. This is more so in the case of leather goods and also in the leather garment business. You see, where a large amount of productions have happened on these parameters for a large number of years. Because of this, what it has also led to is that the investment in terms of plant and machinery has also been lesser, because you found out the product, you get it made, you get it back, and you only act as an exporter. Of course, this is a very, very small percentage of how it is done today, but it still exists, and I know in Calcutta it exists. This is something that we as an industry really need to get out of. I mean, if we have to be globally competitive, our production costs have to be low. And they have to be absolutely consistent. And that is where all of this, the production engineering, the manufacturing excellence, and words like that, they all come in. And I think that is the way to go. So, Babaji, if you're thinking of that, I think you're on the right track, and I'm glad that we are all working in that direction.
Thank you, sir. Maybe you are aware there was a lean training in Kolkata, and we were part of one of these clusters. And and I know that a lot of companies tried these methods in Kolkata, especially, and they failed. Some succeeded, but the cost of production was higher than the piece basis. So we need to seriously have a look and see, because what you're saying is correct. Product engineering and higher productivity with quality is the only way to go.
Very correct. In fact, I go to Mr. Chandrasekharan. We just talked about the fact that we need to lay stress on efficient production techniques, supply chains, backward linkage management, and these are the things that need to go into the government's considerations while planning our leather items export. More so because also, I think the Prime Minister is going to have a webinar on the 3rd on MSMEs, and leather seems to be a focus area. And we're talking about how do we enable this entire industry and get more and more people on board, because finally it is going to also help us create employment and in millions of people that are wanting to come into this fold. So we also have this challenge of what Bhavna also mentioned earlier, skilled workforce. Whether it is for just the tannery sector or for higher skills training to the other people in the entire chain. So, Mr. Chandrasekharan, your viewpoint, please. Sir, you are on mute.
Yeah, as Bhavnaji mentioned, yes, lack of availability of skilled manpower. That's always a perennial issue. And in fact, this government did have an extensive program over the years, under the various skill developmental initiatives. And in fact, now even the Ministry of Skills have been formed. There is a National Skill Development Council, and under which the Leather Sector Skill Council is also there. And we, as a role of institutions, especially the Leather Research Institute at FDDA, CFTIs, and even if needed, NIFT and other institutions. We need to work. In fact, a couple of days back, we did talk about, while we mentioned about these things, some of the higher learning exercises, especially for leather, oriented towards leather product manufacturing, need to be there. And in this regard, we did interact with some of the new entrepreneurs, not necessarily with leather products, but they are into IoT, developing small tools of such things. Who are new entrants, they were looking for opportunities to serve to any manufacturing sector for that matter. In fact, that is where especially some of the radio tags and other aspects of it, which keeps coming into it, if they are incorporated in your manufacturing, it is pretty easier not only to track, what kind of a production and the rate at which it goes, and even some of the defects, even if the defects happening, and what kind of defects, and the whole thing sitting in one front of a system, you'll be able to control your entire production. Some of these things are coming up, and that's where the industry 4.0, in fact, this industry, leather sector, need to embrace all those that's happening in any other manufacturing sector, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel again and again. And some of these things, whether you have some of these tools already available in textile, apparel manufacturing, or garment manufacturing, or any other product manufacturing sector, those tools could be there. We did interact with couple of new entrepreneurs in the IoT making things, and we did have an interaction with some of the product manufacturers, interact with them, and it's becoming fruitful for them. to interact and then get into, some of these modes, especially Bhavnaji was mentioning about the piece rate to this. In fact, Industry 4.0 addresses whether you are going to make 10 or 1,000, and how do we make my manufacturing cost per piece uniform throughout. That is where the challenge lies. And I'm sure some of these tools will come. The roles for organizations coming together in framing up, especially the curriculum for these kind of skill development. It is not simply the manufacturing. Of course, the basic skill sets are required for any of the manufacturing, whether it is my stitching or any other operations, some of the skill sets. But beyond that, she did mention about production engineers and other people, and people already in some of the footwear industries, they hire not just the production, your leather footwear technologists, but they also hire production engineers into them. Some of the leading leather goods and footwear manufacturers do have production engineers in their line and who work towards that. And our program, especially for higher learning in some of those things, in my opinion, all these aspects of it, while we address to the skill and all those things, but the CEOs or the managers in many of the SMEs, they require further training with the orientation towards what is the modern manufacturing methods that are available, what are the various marketing tools that are available, and such things. The leadership quality, people working, and how do we interpersonal skills can go, communication can go, because all these things are essential. And many of the leading, what we call the management programs, talk about some of these aspects of soft skills. So these soft skills coupled with my hard skills of would go a long way for this sector. And I'm sure there's a tremendous opportunity for institutions to get into playing roles. And in my opinion, many of the established and systematically manufacturing units can become a micro institutions of their own, having a set of these kind of skill sets already placed in this. How do they impart these skill sets to their new manpower whom they recruit? When I say an ignorant, literally just a graduate, plain graduate getting into an IT sector without knowing what is coding and this, in 6 months' time, if they can turn into, some of those in the leading, contributors to those IT sector, I think this sector, which definitely and largely works in a low technology area, and such an intervention by every manufacturing unit in making their manpower skill will go a long way in reaching out into this. We as an institution are getting towards that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. In fact, I'd like to take last comments from everybody on two fronts. We have 914 people that have joined us today, all from the leather trade. So, and there's a lot of questions pouring in. Questions are also very, very similar. The questions are all about, what do I do to ramp up my business and, attain this potential on one hand. And there are also the other mandate which I have of figuring out what is it that sort of the government, we need to get the government to do as an action plan or an implementation plan. So I'd like to go to Mr. Verma and Sanjay ji later. In fact, I'd like to first start with Sriram, Dr. Sriram, then go over to Bhavna ji and then Naresh ji.
I would just put it in 3 words. A, quality, have the right manpower, and ensure that you are consistent. And I think that's the only 3 things. Once we have achieved that, everything else will fall in place. I think that's my comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sir. Bhavna, what do you feel that what needs to be done, and people that are now following your footsteps, for example, in the leather industry, what do they need to do that you might have not done the right way?
Well, I think for one, the government should include the PLI scheme in the leather industry. They have not included this. The second, the modern methods of production, the modern methods of marketing, these are something I would advise new entrepreneurs to follow.
Excellent. So I'm going to go over to Naresh ji.
I think I would say innovation is the key, separates the leaders from the followers. Innovation, followed by work on productivity and speed to market. India lags, needs that 3 months to produce and further 1 or 2 months to deliver. So 5 months is a long, so speed to market along with productivity. And third is sustainability and respect the environment. Be responsible. I think we are running a CSR called Green Souls where we refurbish discarded sports shoes into chappals and offer to girls' schools. Because of that, we are now, that's respecting and contributing to our major export business because they feel we are responsible and respecting the sustainability. So innovation, productivity, speed to market, be sustainable, respect the environment.
Thank you. Sanjay ji, you have the last word on the industry.
All right, thank you. So, see, in my perception, the most important thing today is our manufacturing has to become more efficient, so we have to be looking at, at creating a manufacturing excellence. That is the way forward. The second element that is extremely important is that our design capabilities really need upgradation. We need to get to the next level as far as design is concerned, because that is what will help us in being able to market a product that that gets marketed on its own. And connected to this is the building of Indian brands. In terms of exports, we do not have a single brand, or practically don't have a single brand that exports leather product out of India. There are, of course, a couple of small different situations, but I think the building of brands is something extremely important. This is what will take us as an industry to the next level. So these are the three elements that I feel are extremely important for the industry.
Very, very important. Thank you, all of you. I am extremely hopeful that with the sort of inputs that we've discussed today, I think there's the time is not far that India is going to be at the top when it comes to leather exports, and we will take this discussion forward. We will take this discussion to the next level, whether it's with the government or for micro or small enterprises, and we will also obviously share with all of you the next steps wherever required. With that, thank you very much to all of you, and we are running out of time, and I am really, really very thankful to all of you for having given us the time to talk, to share, and to tell all our micro entrepreneurs that have joined us today the intricacies and also the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vinodji.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
We also have the benefit of the company of the gentleman, Mr. Srinath, who has come from UPS. So we are going to have a little chat with him in a few minutes.
When others feared what was to come, you saw a sliver of light, opportunity. And while some tried to go back, you're going all in, rethinking, reinventing, smashing through new barriers and old fears. And we're right there with you, in the trenches, still grinding, still climbing, as you rally and rise. You are the one who can make this whole world turn. So be bold, be brave, be unstoppable.
सपनों की कोई एक्सपायरी डेट नहीं होती। एक छोटा सा सपना, उसी को साकार करने के लिए आप करते हैं मेहनत, आप जोड़ते हैं रिश्ते, उसी को मुमकिन बनाने के लिए आप रखते हैं हौसला। कदम छोटे हों या हों बड़े, कामयाबी की बुलंदी जब आप छूते हैं तो खुशी के आंसू तो हमें भी आते हैं। सफर में धूप और छांव दोनों आते हैं, पर सही वक्त में अपने ही तो साथ निभाते हैं। Here's presenting our range of business banking solutions. इतना कुछ ताकि आपका बिजनेस बढ़े और तभी साथ में सच हो हमारा सपना। As we believe in empowering businesses with solutions under a single roof. Kotak Business Banking Solutions.
Well, we're back, and we have the pleasure of the company of Mr. Srinath. They have had varied experience as far as logistics are concerned. We did talk about logistics issues a few minutes back, and we are going to have a little chat with him. Welcome, Srinath. Your connection has been really bad today, so we have been, continuously getting you on and off. So,
That's right. That's right, Manoj.
I wanted to know from you, Srinath, that we talked about the possibility of exports, the potential. We talked about the issues. We talked about the challenges. What is your feedback about, or what's the information that you have? You must be working with a lot of exporters, vis-a-vis
That's right.
exporting markets, vis-a-vis logistics, vis-a-vis warehousing. There are a lot of issues, both on B2B and the B2C side. When we go B2C through e-commerce, even then, what sort of challenges are there and how can we overcome them? And similarly, when we are in the B2B side, what sort of support can we get from UPS?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, Mr. Vinodji. There were a lot of data points being shared during the course of the presentation. However, there are certain aspects that I wanted to share over here. Right. If you talk about the footwear market, right, which is almost about 9% of world's footwear production from India, right, and when we are talking about the per capita consumption of footwear, and it is going to likely increase from 2.3 pairs to 2.9 pairs by end of 2024, right. Having said that, the logistics industry is upward challenges, and since last 2 years because of this dynamic situation in the market. However, particularly when it comes to retail industry, I see there are 4 critical challenges. One being the connectivity to international markets, and next is the compliances, and then the speed to market, and the last one would be on the visibility, right? So when I wanted to say about the connectivity to international markets, right? So it requires a global network and a capacity, right? So what we do with UPS is, we connect to more than 220 plus countries and territories, right? So we just do not connect shipments, and we also do educate customers on their markets, their policies, and then the frameworks. And we also provide capacity to meet the growing demands across their Western markets, right? Since West is of more concentration when it comes to the leather and leather-related products, right? So when we talk about compliance, it is challenging, right? So since compliance is on local laws and regulations, right? Therefore, we provide export clearance capabilities, again, across to 200 plus countries. One important aspect of it is the product pricing, right? The product pricing is equally important, and we make sure our customers are being educated on how to be shipping across and what is the value that has been allocated to a particular product, and to also provide a visibility on the landed cost, right? So one other thing is it's speed to market, right? The speed to market is very, very, very critical because it is critical on when it comes to shelf life availability as per the seasons. It's not just the shelf life availability. It also requires some handling expertise, right? So UPS provides an integrated solutions, and we make both the ends meet for their requirements, right? So lastly, when I wanted to talk about the visibility, and visibility is a concern when it comes to the supply chain management. So we at UPS we provide an optimal utilization of digital modes available within our network. And we also provide end-to-end tracking and tracing along with our digital integration and technology processing capabilities, right? So this gives us a overall visibility towards our entire supply chain, and we are SMEs, can make use of it to bring in a big, great sort of a business to India.
So, in fact, that's what I wanted to ask you specifically about micro and small enterprises. They are very, very important to India's economic growth.
That's right.
How do you support SMEs, specifically, let's say, for example, for online commerce or e-commerce as we know it today, where you could get direct to customers, and then, you might have singular shipments out. Would it be expensive for an SME to deal with something like that on a one-to-one basis?
Of course not. It's not about the cost here. It's about the technology solutions that we give it to our customers. So when it comes to SMEs, reaching out to international markets and getting their share of business is very complicated, right? So what we do is we empower SMEs, right? It's not just the business development that we do there, right? So it's more of, a consultative approach that we do out to our customers. And then we take it up from there.
Srinath again. Yeah,
Okay,
you're back.
I'm back, right? So I'm sorry about it. I got a very poor network. I'm really sorry about that.
It's okay.
So so it's basically a consultative approach that we do across to all the SMEs here, right? So SMEs are being a key focus area for UPS, right? So we've been working with a lot of SMEs across India, and we've been able to cater to so many customers, and we could see some large successes across as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Srinath, for joining us today. We've had a bad connection, but we look forward to having you one of those days, and we'll have a longer chat with you on exactly what is it that we can expect from UPS, which is not available anywhere else. Thank you very much for coming over today, and we move on forward. We've already crossed the time. With that, I give you back to the studio. Thank you, Srinath.
Thanks, Mr. Vinod Kumarji. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
When others feared what was to come, you saw a sliver of light, opportunity. And while some tried to go back, you're going all in. Rethinking, reinventing, smashing through new barriers and old fears. And we're right there with you, in the trenches, still grinding, still climbing, as you rally and rise. You are the one who can make this whole world turn. So be bold, be brave, be unstoppable.
Thank you, sir, and all the panelists. It was indeed a very informative and insightful session. Thank you once again. Now I would again request Mr. Dunjarao to come and give closing remarks and vote of thanks.
As the discussion today took place, we came to know that the leather sector has immense potential. Today we discussed how to increase the overall sustainability quotient of this industry, compliance related issues and compliance related problems of this sector. What is the potential of India to grow, transition of leather products to value added leather products, opportunities of Indian MSMEs in this sector. We also saw the need of innovation and the need of research and development for manufacturing leather products with carbon neutrality. Also, the need of getting new entrepreneurs to come and join this leather fraternity. With this, building a self sufficient component ecosystem in India is the long term goal for leather and leather footwear. This will not only just allow producers to increase production volumes, but also incentivize to boost the exports of footwear and leather accessories. Here I request once again to please register yourself on www.indiaexports.com, exports without an E. Let me just make you go through the portal, what exactly this portal is all about. India Export Portal is an export information hub which helps the exporter from various different sectors to get the knowledge about about overall exports under one umbrella. This portal has various tabs which provides you information about various schemes, government schemes, different information on exports. There is an export potential tab, which is the most unique tab, which will give you information on export potential of your products in different international markets. We also have export information tab, which has the information why you have to need, what is the need for exports. We also have export banking and finance tab, which gives you varied information, export related information related to banking and finance. This India Export Portal has partnered with Kotak Mahindra Bank for providing services related to banking and finance. We also have logistics and warehousing tab, which provides you with all the information related to logistics and warehousing, where we have exclusive partner UPS, which also supports gives MSME support about logistics and warehousing. And last but not the least, we have e-commerce exports tab, which is focused how to export, how exporters can take advantage of e-commerce as a medium to reach around the world. So with this, I thank Ministry of MSME and NSIC for the support. I thank our exclusive banking partner, Kotak Mahindra Bank. I thank our exclusive logistics and warehousing partner, UPS. And I also thank our knowledge partner, SDRC International. With this, I thank all the panelists and our moderator and all the audiences who have joined us today. Namaskar, Jai Hind.
सपनों की कोई एक्सपायरी डेट नहीं होती। एक छोटा सा सपना, उसी को साकार करने के लिए आप करते हैं मेहनत, आप जोड़ते हैं रिश्ते, उसी को मुमकिन बनाने के लिए आप रखते हैं हौसला। कदम छोटे हों या हों बड़े, कामयाबी की बुलंदी जब आप छूते हैं तो खुशी के आंसू तो हमें भी आते हैं। सफर में धूप और छांव दोनों आते हैं, पर सही वक्त में अपने ही तो साथ निभाते हैं। Here's presenting our range of business banking solutions. इतना कुछ ताकि आपका बिजनेस बढ़े और तभी साथ में सच हो हमारा सपना। As we believe in empowering businesses with solutions under a single roof. Kotak Business Banking Solutions.
When others feared what was to come, you saw a sliver of light, opportunity. And while some tried to go back, you're going all in. Rethinking, reinventing, smashing through new barriers and old fears. And we're right there with you, in the trenches, still grinding, still climbing, as you rally and rise. You are the one who can make this whole world turn. So be bold, be brave, be unstoppable.